Jonathan Shurberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jonathan Shurberg. I'm an attorney in private practice in Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm also a board member of Gender Rights Maryland, Dr. Byers' organization. I'm chair of the legislative committee. You have my written testimony. I want to talk about two things right now, which is, first off, it's been alluded to, the 11th Circuit's recent decision in a case called Glenn versus Brumby, which is a case out of Georgia. It's actually against the Georgia state government, which declared ultimately that it was unconstitutional to discriminate against someone who is transgender because this person's boss was concerned basically what was under her clothing. And that's pretty close to a quote from the case. And what was determined in that case by a three-judge panel of the 11th Circuit was that it was unconstitutional for the state government to discriminate in that way. And one of the members of that panel was probably one of the most conservative judges in the country. He was filibustered by a Democratic Senate back in 2005, 2006, William Pryor, the former Attorney General of Alabama. He joined that opinion, that unanimous opinion, which basically said that it is sex stereotyping, which you cannot do under the Constitution. And it's a sweeping opinion, and it's not a very long opinion, and I would highly recommend that anyone who's interested read it. But the more important thing to note is that while the state government can't do it, you, members of this committee, cannot discriminate against transgender people pretty clearly under the 11th Circuit decision. That doesn't protect anybody outside of government, because as we all know, the 14th Amendment and the Constitution only apply specifically to the government. In the government action, it doesn't say anything about what happens with employers, private employers, other public employers. So I think it's critically important to say that we ought to take that protection and provide it to other people, against other employers, such as private employers, public employers. And just within the last 6 months, Howard County and Baltimore County have passed legislation similar to this bill. So I think it's important that the state, we have a good chunk of the state is covered by by bills that cover this, but I think it's time that the state do it, because there's no reason that everybody in the state shouldn't be protected. There's no reason that it should matter where you live. Second thing I want to point out that's been alluded to is that there have been bills of this type in effect for over 20 years. I don't remember the date the first one was passed statewide, but over 40% of the country is covered by some form of protections for transgender people. And none of the things, Senator Brochen, with all due respect, there are concerns, and there are a lot of concerns that are expressed, and they sound good, but the question is, do they happen? Because if they don't happen after many, many years, at some point we have to conclude that they're probably not going to, because, for example, Montgomery County's had a bill since 2007. Hasn't happened. Now, we can't say anything about Baltimore County and Howard County yet, because the bills have only been in effect for a few months. But some of these bills go back 25 and I think even 30 years. That's a long time. And if people can't come to you and say, tell me why, tell me what happened, give me a, for instance, somewhere, somehow, my position is, as a lawyer at least, that's a long enough period of time to say that it's probably not going to happen. And quite frankly, it hasn't happened. I urge you to support Senate Bill 212.
Any questions? Here to be none, thank you very much for your testimony, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Shurberg.
Chairman.